अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ असतो
मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय
Our next speaker lives by the mantra of creating a more interconnected and cohesive world. Mr. Ajay Piramal is one of India's leading industrialists and philanthropists. As the chairman of the Piramal Group, he has led its transformation into a US $10 billion global business conglomerate. A firm believer in the tenets of the Bhagavad Gita, Mr. Piramal is a passionate advocate of trusteeship and responsible business ethos. He is deeply invested in unblocking India's socio-economic potential and is an ardent promoter of social entrepreneurship. Mr. Piramal actively steers the group's involvement in various social impact initiatives through the Piramal Foundation. Under his stewardship, the foundation has been working to transform health, education, water, and social sector ecosystems by partnering with the governments, international and national organizations, and academia to improve the delivery of government services. In order to usher in transformation at scale, Mr. Piramal has bet big on bold philanthropy and action, transitioning to creating platforms for public good to solve India's most intractable problems and to enable India leapfrog her growth and achieve sustainable development goals by 2030. He is also passionate and enthusiastic about contributing to India's education sector and serves as the president and chairman of Anant National University and the chairman of the Pratham Education Foundation. We look forward to your thoughts and path towards the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in commerce and trade, Mr. Piramal. May I request Mr. Asim Agarwala, industrialist and Chinmaya Mission patron, to welcome Mr. Piramal, please. Could I invite Mr. Ajay Piramal to share his thoughts with us? Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ajay Piramal.
Swami Swatmanandji and all the dignitaries here and friends. It really gives me great pleasure to be here today, and more because I'm one of the millions of people who have learned about our scriptures from Chinmaya Mission and Swamiji. So thank you for that. You know, we talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and really this is something which also the Prime Minister talks about, the soft power that India has. I do not know any other culture which speaks so much about oneness. Today you saw so many of the shloks, the poetries, all talked about oneness. At least in my understanding, there's no other culture which talks about it. And somehow we have forgotten it and thought that this was not supposed to be the in thing or the cool thing in your terms. But I'm glad that it is coming up, and it's the most appropriate title for the whole G20 summit that we have. And in fact, this is what I feel is the right time when the world is now once again awakening to India's capabilities. Our capabilities and strength are derived from our scriptural doctrines, which have been the driving force behind the concept of India. As has been said before, there is no other culture which has survived and actually grown and changed and adapted for tens of thousands of years. I mean, it's when you go and go to Egypt, and those are the great, you go to Greece, you go to Rome, it's only, you see monuments and you see museums, but you don't see a living culture. And therefore, the philosophy of universal brotherhood, or Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, has become really most relevant in the world today, as the world is bruised and contaminated with fighting the virus war, inflation, poverty, loss of income and employment, the Russian-Ukraine conflict. It is in this context, it's only the small-minded who would discriminate between kin and a stranger, while for the magnanimous, as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam says, the entire world is a family. The world to heal needs to forge meaningful partnerships and collaborations across developed and developing nations and collectively address people's problems through fair trade deals, removal of trade barriers, and forming a positive global environment based on trust. We spoke about, you spoke about Parliament, how Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam has come, but actually it is also very interesting that in our Constitution, the very first page of the Constitution talks about how our democracy is, the pillars of the democracy are justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. And fraternity is the same concept, is closely related to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. In fact, Dr. Ambedkar, who is the author of the Constitution, has laid great stress on this fraternity, and he says, fraternity means a sense of common brotherhood amongst all. It is a principle which gives unity and solidarity to social life. He believed that without fraternity, the other pillars like equality, liberty would have not any value. So this culture has been enshrined in the Constitution as well. So what can we do as a corporate? And as now India is today amongst it's the 5th largest economy in the world in terms of GDP, and is supposed to become, by 2030, 2040, amongst the top 3 economies in the world. So we have an important role to play in this. And let me just give you some areas where I feel Indian corporates can and have actually proactively shouldered this responsibility, and see what more can be done. First of all, as we all experience on a daily basis, it's climate and the issues that climate has. Climate change is not a remote phenomenon anymore. Evident from the fact that you see frequent forest fires, heat waves, floods, and other erratic climatic patterns that the world has never seen before. Addressing climate risks should be the priority right now to ensure that the Earth remains a livable place for all generations to come. Climate change has become a major social disruptor, leading to displacement of communities, food insecurity, water shortages, and health-related issues. It is one of the reasons behind a global rise in hunger and poor nutrition. The United Nations recognizes that fossil fuels, that is, coal, oil and gas, is the largest contributor to the global climate change, accounting for over 75% of global greenhouse gas emissions and nearly 90% of all carbon dioxide emissions. Actually, if you look at it, a lot of these issues have been historically created by the developed countries in their quest for wealth. The Global Carbon Project estimates that the 23 rich developed countries are responsible for 50% of these CO2 emissions. And the balance, 150 countries, are responsible for the rest. So you can imagine the issues that have been brought about. And in 2009, actually, during the Copenhagen summit, the rich nations had committed to put $100 billion per year in climate finance. But when you see really, we are falling short by several billions of dollars. In fact, what is also quite, disheartening is that I see in the going forward many barriers which are not in terms of trade barriers coming in because of the restrictions which will be put because of climate. So I can see that the developed world would say that unless you follow so many other climate, for the developing world, that unless you meet so many other criteria, which will be tough for the developing world to come, you will have these sort of non-commercial trade barriers. And that is, in fact, this morning's newspaper also highlights that. So I think that is a major concern I see going forward. Renewable energy has emerged as an effective way to slow down the ill effects of climate change. India, including the corporate sector in India, has been at the forefront of generating and using renewable energy. Over the last 2 decades, the installed renewable capacity rose from 26 gigawatts to 167 gigawatts, making us the 4th globally in renewable installed capacity. So we're the 4th in the world in this. And this has been achieved through a focused policy. Whether it's the smart city mission, the 100% FDI in renewables, the PLI scheme for solar modules, etc. These have attracted huge investments from FDIs as well as from corporate investments. India still has a potential to do 1,000 plus gigawatts of renewable energy from the 167 gigawatts that we are at today. And by 2030, we expect to be at 500 gigawatts. Again, to reach this, we will need an investment of $140 billion. And this investment has to come not only from within the country, but also from global, whether it's multilateral agencies, whether it is FDIs, and whether it's people like Renuka sitting here who will bring it up. India's pace of cleaner energy paves the way for more emerging and developing nations to adopt this model. So we are actually setting up an example in many areas. That is the leadership with the soft power that we can demonstrate. And renewables is just one thing. Going forward, the additional focus we need to put on also restoration of mining and forest fires affected areas. Forest fires are a thing that you see now all over the world. You've seen that in the US, we've seen that in Australia, we are also seeing that now in India. This is impacted by drought, rising surface temperatures, ice melting, and hazardous fuel buildup, etc. Investing in replenishing nature has its own benefits for the private sector, which includes an increased business and partnership opportunities from enhanced supplies of products and services from the restored areas, and strengthened social credentials associated with sustainability and social activities. Another area coming beyond climate is the technological transformation. And India has shown exceptional leadership through its technological innovations today. A lot of these innovations are targeted towards social upliftment of the marginalized population. We have a large pool of talented engineers and scientists, and today this is only increasing. The average Indian age is the youngest population in the world today. Our average age is just 29 years compared to any other country, and this can be a major source of strength for us. And the things that have been done in the digital infrastructure, nowhere in the world has it been done. Whether it's in Aadhaar, the database, whether it's the UPI, the interface, the COVID vaccination, are some examples how the rest of the world can actually copy us. You will be surprised, at least when I read this number, that the number of UPI payments in India is per day is 11 times more than of America and Europe put together. And today, I mean, I don't know, whenever you go at any part of the country, whether it's 5 rupees, without any cost, you can actually pay through the, your phone. I mean, it's amazing. And we've seen the benefits of this across how, I mean, I was surprised. I was going to a tribal area, and they have, the tribals have their own medicines, their herbs. Even there, they were willing to take electronic transfer of money. I mean, so that is how widespread this is. One other big area of technology innovation, as we all know today, is in artificial intelligence, where, again, the Indian private sector, especially the startups, are doing exemplifying work in this space, aimed at improving the quality of life through better healthcare services, food security, and building safer communities. A lot of the solutions to global problems can be resolved through agriculture, health tech, ed tech, and fintech. Let me give you some examples of agri-tech. Today, India has about 40% of our population is dependent upon agriculture, but only 17% of our GDP is from agriculture. In fact, the share of agriculture in the GDP is going down, and it is, if you see the growth rate in agriculture is one of the slowest. You find that the growth rates, if it's 3 or 4% a year, you will say it's a very good growth rate in agriculture. If you look at business or industry, if you say it's 4%, they'll say it's a bad year. So this is where 40% is possible, where 40% of population is there, we need to do much more. And I'm seeing the innovations, and I'm sure many of you must be also seeing the innovations in agriculture, how we can increase productivity through technology in spite of all the challenges, whether it is through in limited areas of water. Again, I was yesterday in Rajasthan, and in a perfectly fully desert area, I saw how the Miyawaki concept of growing trees and all. There's a whole forest in that. I can't believe that that is possible. So technology can help us to actually increase productivity of agriculture and make a significant difference in the lives of people. In health technology, again, health infrastructure can make, again, technology plays a big difference. We work in the health sector in Bihar. And I was going to one of the most backward districts of Bihar called Sitamarhi. There are a hospital in Sitamarhi where there is a whole technology and IoT has been installed at every machine, whether it's an X-ray machine, whether it's an ECG machine, it's all the machines. And these are now being monitored at a central command center in Patna. So you can imagine, and if there is a fault, it can be easily recognized over there and corrected. So that is how technology can reach the furthest parts of the country. And this is what will make the whole world one family. Because whether it is a person who is living in the most remotest area must have access to what we in the cities have. Similarly, whether it is in terms of technology, again, I'm giving you a lot of instances of the social sector only because that's where you can see the impact much more. There are many tribal areas, and infant mortality and maternal mortality is one of the biggest challenges in our country, and we are behind. How do we raise those levels? It's by actually having video conferencing with people living in tribal areas. They connect with the best doctors in cities and urban areas, and that's how you can deliver to them, deliver healthcare to them. Because the challenges, again, in India are so many. The number of doctors that we have today per 100,000 is in the country is far less than any other country in the world. So again, we have to go more and more. Technology for education is another thing that we can do, and again, set an example for the world. Today, we have 200 million people in schools, about 20 million schools all over the country. How can we bridge the digital divide between those who have access to technology like us here and those who find it difficult? And that's where, with 5G and all this, you will find that the cost of delivery to them and there's no network which is as good in India as the Indian network, if you have to appreciate that. I'm sure all of us who travel abroad, whether it's in the US, whether it is in UK or Europe, will find that our phone connectivity is much better. So this is one way of making use, again, of technology to deliver education and to make education equal to all people. Again, this is a cost-effective medium of personalized training and skill development that can take place. Fintech is another area where we have made progress. A lot more is made. The direct benefit transfer is one of the biggest gifts that we have got in this country. We could survive out of COVID because so many people got direct benefit transfer without any intermediates taking away the money. Our direct benefit transfer is much better than what it was in the US. And there are countries who are now looking at it, how we can do it. So this is what is bringing the world together. Technology can bring the world together in a big way. I'm just giving some examples, but there are so many that continue to happen. And innovation will take place as cost of technology comes down. We have to see that it is spread more and more. Employment is another issue that we all need to look at. And again there, if we have proper skill-based, proper education in STEM, that is science, technology, and as well as in skills, I think we can find useful employment for all our people. And again, I think we've seen the benefit that Indians do anywhere in the world in terms of, look at most large number of CEOs globally are now Indian. But not only our global CEOs, but even others. And because of the culture that India has of being peace-loving, you talked about love, compassion, that is inherent in each of us. They say that even if the Vedas disappear in the world, these values will continue. That is what India is all about. And therefore, again, is an opportunity for us to push for this, and corporates are doing that. If we can do much more in these areas, whether it is in technology, whether it is in education, I think we'll go, and employment. Healthcare is one other area. We talked about the COVID Maitri in the earlier part. Do you know that we also have some business in pharmaceuticals, and we were dependent on some packing material, not even very important material, which was very specialized from the US. But during COVID times, all supplies to any company other than those that were making COVID medicines for the US were stopped. And look at it on the other side. We were here, we were giving vaccines to the whole world. We were giving drugs to the whole world. So when the people who were the most developed countries had shut all their trade, we were the ones which were going out. And that is the strength that India has. That is the soft power that we've had. You talked about Turkey and all that. Turkey is one country which is the most anti-India. I've never seen them support one Indian resolution in the UN till now. But yet, we continue to give them. And that is our strength. As we keep on developing this more and more, I think India will become better. And the concept of the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the fact that we are one family, one earth, will again be further, I think, only emphasized. One area that, again, if we can do something and the world will be better, is women empowerment. It's not only in India, but in the rest of the world as well. Women, you found that most people will find that for the same job, women, I think, are paid somewhere like 50% lower than men are doing it. So why can't they do that? And especially you go to rural areas, women are not even allowed to go out of their house. And that is what leads to so much of, frankly, whether it is abuse, whether it is disrespect, whether it's physical, sexual abuse, these are big issues. So if we empower women, if we encourage them to do more, I think we will be in a world, will be in a better place. And so with all this, I think, again, corporates can and have always been a force for good. They are the ones who have to show the way, because people look at that, and unfortunately, that's what the world wants. So if you have corporates who are showing this, I think the world will be better, and the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam will come even more alive. Thank you.